Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to Winter Park, Florida to meet Jacqueline Bond, who grew up in this gorgeous Spanish-style home. As a child, Jacqueline spent countless hours inside the home's magnificent two-story library. It's where her passion for literature grew with every page turned. All the adventures Jacqueline embarked upon while reading in this library inspired her to launch Bond and Grace, a women-owned publishing house and art dealer. Join us as Jacqueline, along with her father and stepmother, give us a tour of their incredible library and share their favorite stories along the way. We're happy to be partnering with Bond and Grace on this special episode. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. My name is Jacqueline Bond. Welcome to my childhood home in Winter Park, Florida. Come on and meet the parents and check out our two-story library.
Hey everybody,
Welcome to our library.
come on in.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Bond. I am the CEO and co-founder of Bond and Grace. We are a publishing house and art dealer based in Washington, D.C. And what we do is we create collectible art novels and we curate fine art collections, all inspired by classic literature. We create gifts in tabletop, home decor, and stationery for the literary lover and all of us. So I grew up here. This was my childhood home. My parents bought the home when I was about 10 years old, and my grandmother actually lives across the street. And I remember every time we would come over to her house for dinner, we would always take a family walk afterwards. And on that family walk, we would always walk by this house. And I remember as a child, I loved the house. It was so unique. It's a Spanish style home and really beautiful. And I always remember thinking, oh, I would love to live there someday. And I don't know, I guess I must have manifested it because the house became for sale and my parents decided to tour the house and I went with them. I'm so thrilled to show you my childhood library and where I really fell in love with reading, but this house is obviously not mine. It's owned by my parents, my father, Larry Bond, and my stepmom, Cindy, and I'm so excited to have them show you around. Okay, I'm so excited to give you a tour of our library. This is my dad, Larry Bond, and this is my stepmom, Cindy Bond.
Hi everybody.
And, you know, I was only 10 years old when we moved into this house, so I don't really have much of the history of it, but you can share.
Yes. So coincidentally, my mother, Jacqueline's grandmother,
Grandmother Dottie.
yeah, Grandma Dottie, moved into this neighborhood in 1993. And then this house was under construction in 1994. So we'd come visit, we'd walk the neighborhood, and we were always struck by how beautiful this home was. In 2000, we actually were looking for a home, and I got invited to the neighborhood Christmas party, believe it or not, and that's where I met the homeowners and found out that they were selling the home. It was a doctor and a professor, hence all the books that the professor brought in. So yeah, we did the deal there, and I didn't even know about this amazing library at the time. So yeah, it was very special, and we've been here since 2000, and my mother still lives down the street, which is great.
So I remember being so in awe by all of these books and being so excited once you all purchased the house. But talk about what you all had to do in order, I mean, it was nothing like this before. So Cindy, what did you do? It was mainly you.
I'm a very light-room person, and this room, of course, is very dark with all the wood elements, which are beautiful. So I brought in the white couches and white elements throughout the library to brighten it up.
And I remember walking in one day and we had books stacked all over the floor because you brought your brother in to help you organize, and So I remember literally stacks and stacks of hundreds of books.
Yes, because not only did we clean them up and get rid of the books that were not in good shape, my brother categorized them for me all on the bottom floor. Mostly the books down here are what was in the house. And we've added some of our own as far as coffee table books or just little decoration things, you know, maybe personal photo albums. But other than that, we did end up getting rid of a lot of the paperback books because they were very damaged.
I really grew up with a love of art and home decor because of you. Cindy is an interior decorator, so I was always surrounded by beautiful furniture and art. And this is actually your brother's piece.
Yes, he is an artist in Arizona, and he has painted this in encaustic painting, which is an old technique of the paint mixed with wax, and you can feel the wax. It's beautiful, and I have many in my house. And so it's a family thing. And I also have a brother-in-law upstairs that did a painting, and he paints with words, and he's a school teacher by day.
Yeah, so it's just kind of fortuitous almost that I ended up creating a company that was art,
Based on
literature,
art.
and
Yes,
all of that. So
absolutely.
I actually never really thought about that.
And this is one of my earliest pieces when I was very young. I used to go to, it was the first Friday of every month, and they had a young artist studio. And I picked this piece of art, so it's hung with me throughout my life.
I think something else that's really amazing about this library and something that I always really adored was that my father mentioned that the owners were a professor and a doctor. And what's incredible is that you can really tell that they read these books. I mean, almost all of these I feel like were actually read. If you pull any book out, you can see notes in the margins and underlines and, you know, just little tidbits that they wrote throughout. There's bookmarks in random books. And I always thought that was really special, that this was not just a collected library, it really was read. And I think that's something really beautiful about it.
And during going through all these books, we did find one book that is my husband's favorite story.
Yes, so, it's kind of a fun story. I did mention to Cindy's brother when he was organizing and categorizing the books, if he did find something that was of what he thought was some great value, I would be very interested and would share maybe some of the gains from that book. And you can see here, this book is very interesting. It's an old Japanese book, actually has ivory to kind of keep the book together because the front cover is coming off. It goes back to the 1800s, and he said, I think this book is worth about $250. And I immediately said to him, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 25 G's. And he said, no, $250. So anyway, that's a fun fact about this book that I've told a number of times.
This piece is actually from our Secret Garden collection. Cindy, as I mentioned, is an interior designer. She's showing this to a potential collector this week, so we thought we would bring it down. But this is from artist Brenna K. Murphy. This is titled Veil, and this was actually in my previous Homeworthy episode, and I made a mistake, and so I want to clarify. So this artist, she uses embroidery throughout the piece, and there are thousands and thousands of embroidered threads on here. And in my Homeworthy piece previously, I said that there was a couple hundred. No, there are thousands. And what's really striking about this work is you can look away, you can look from far away, and it's a very intense piece. But when you look up close, there's so much intricacy in it that I think is really beautiful. But what the artist does is she uses the labor of the piece. I mean, this takes her weeks to complete, and it's the labor of the piece, it's the emotional emotional and physical and psychological labor that she really believes helps you overcome depression and grief and eventually creates hope. And I love that about this piece, and it actually looks really great in this library. I certainly have Beauty and the Beast moments in this room. There are many photos of me as a child and even as an adult climbing on the ladder to my right, and the ladder actually moves around the room. That was certainly one of my favorite Disney films and princess films, so I was always the Belle, the one reading and curled up with a book. So this is certainly the magical interpretation of that. And this is really where I fell in love with reading. I was 10 years old, so Harry Potter had just came out, and that was truthfully where my love of reading really began. I became obsessed with those books, and I read them in this room. You know, I was pretty indoor cat. Being in Florida, a lot of children loved being outside, going in the pool, going to camps, playing sports. That was not me. I preferred to be inside in air conditioning with my books, and this was the room where I did that. And the love of reading eventually evolved into the love of classics, where I fell in love with Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice. I read Pride and Prejudice in this room on that couch, actually. And yeah, this is where that love and adoration for reading really began. Now we'd love to take you upstairs to see the rest of the library.
So welcome to the second floor of our library. So when we talk about styling in your home, you can add art pieces, which is a beautiful Bond and Grace piece, which my lovely husband bought for our anniversary last year. And I just love how it's 3-dimension. I like very different art, so just not a painting. And anyway, so I have books here. This is also my office up here. So I added personal touches, which are photographs of my family and my friends. Again, books. Most of these books came from my dear aunt who passed away, and she was an avid reader, so I received all her books also. So this is an additional part of the library, which is my office. And I love it up here. I get to see outside and enjoy all the books. So this library is also functional. I often get ideas as an interior designer from many magazines, and there's certain ones I like, so I keep them and I go through them occasionally, as well as I have boxes below which have a lot of fabrics in it and wallpaper, so everything's hidden within my library. This desk is woman-made. I've had these columns for years in other homes, and they were plant stands, and when I moved into this space, I couldn't find a desk that wowed me, so I just bought a piece of glass and put it on top. And I was fortunate enough to find this vintage lamp and then add a different color of a shade on it, as well as my crazy fabric chair. I wanted a pop of color. It's time to reupholster because I've used it very well, and it's going to be another crazy color. So my personal design style is very traditional, but I do love vintage items, and I also love bringing coastal inspired items. I love seashells. I love using things that have grown from the earth, like quartz or stones. And when I'm working with clients, I do like to throw those elements in their design, even if they're not totally traditional. It just adds a little flavor to their home and more personal aspect.
I have always adored Jane Austen. I have always collected her novels. Every time I walk into a local bookstore, I go straight for their classics section and always try to find their version of Pride and Prejudice. And I had always searched for a large, oversized version of the novel, and nothing really ever came up. I Googled it forever, searched for it forever. And finally, I was with my mom one day and I said, have you ever seen a coffee table sized version of Pride and Prejudice? She said, no. I said, oh, someone should really do that. And she said, well, why don't you? And I said, okay, Mom, sure. Let me just start a publishing house. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't get the idea out of my head. And I called up my now co-founder who was at Google at the time, and I said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And she said, we need to talk to a lot of people before we dive in. And so we spent the next 6 months talking with artists, interior designers, literary lovers to find out what is it that people really look for when they are looking for coffee table books or collecting their favorite pieces of literature. And what we found was that the larger publishing houses that are producing coffee table books, they're not actually producing books about literature. They're producing books about travel or pop culture or fashion, which we thought was really interesting. And then when you look at the other side of those publishing houses that are creating the reproductions of Jane Austen, the reason why I have about 50 different versions of Pride and Prejudice, they're really just placing a new cover on the top and maybe working with an artist or two to illustrate it, but they're not doing it in a way that I felt was really elevated. They were books meant to be adored, but not read. And so I love collecting books, but I also love reading them. I think they're meant to be read. And so we realized we had an opportunity to kind of combine all of these worlds of the luxury level of coffee table books, but also the literature piece. And so what we decided to do was work with literary scholars to help us read these novels, answer all the questions we have about why the book was written the way it was, what was going on during the time period of the author, what history or interesting tidbits could have been happening at the time that may have influenced the author's work, and then create captions so that these stories not only can be read with what they were, but also evolve so that we can give them a little more modern perspective. And so we have captions throughout our novels, but we also knew that we wanted these books to be beautiful. And what better way to ensure that something is beautiful than to work with artists? And so we partner with 12 artists per novel. And these are artists with all different backgrounds and perspectives and specialize in a range of mediums. And we ask these artists to read the novel, use the novel as their prompt, and then create art inspired by the novel itself. And so what ends up happening is we have about 80 to 100 pieces of original fine art inspired by that text. And so throughout the novel, and I actually have one right here, you have the full original text of the original story with annotations from the scholars, and then we have fine art that you can actually purchase and collect. And that's the art novel. And we have 3 collections so far. The first was the Secret Garden collection, which we launched in 2022. Last year we launched the Frankenstein collection, and this year we are launching our next collection, which will be on November 1st, which I can't give it away yet, but it's a completely new, wonderful world that I'm really excited for everyone to experience. But I think what's so wonderful about these novels is that it opens up these amazing and incredible worlds. So The Secret Garden is obviously very different than Frankenstein, and we have this incredible floral feminine art, and then with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein it gets dark and abstract and there's so much depth. And I think that's what's really exciting, because we can then produce wonderful artifacts and home decor items all inspired by literature. And I'm really excited about what's to come for Bond and Grace, because we have a lot up our sleeves. So So this is one of my favorite pieces from the Frankenstein collection, which is inspired by Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And this is a piece called Sublime Nature from Renee Phillips. And what she does is she gets inspiration from aerial photos of the Earth. And she uses a little bit of art and science to create her pieces. This is actually melted plastic that molds, and it really looks like a glacier from the Arctic if you look up close. And this was inspired by the novel, the beginning and the end of the novel, where Victor Frankenstein, who is the scientist, not the monster, he believes that he can control nature and overcome nature and dominate nature. And we all know that that's not the case, that nature has a way of acting on its own accord and can dominate you in return. And so this was the inspiration behind that piece, and I think it's quite striking and looks great in this room. And Cindy loves pieces that involve the water and nature itself, so it fits perfectly here.
So one other very interesting aspect about the library, which very few people know about until now, is that there is a secret room within the library. In fact, it used to be a photography room that the professor utilized. But yeah, we have a secret room, and as you can see, every section looks the same, and that's the beauty of it. And it's going to stay a secret, I'm afraid. So I wish I could tell you, but not today.
It was such a secret that when I was younger, I would sneak up here with my best friend. We were very young, and we would steal cookies and open the secret room and close the secret room and eat a bunch of cookies in the secret room. And I actually told that story to my dad today, and he was like, "I didn't know you did that."
So basically the entire school knew everything about the secret room.
Yeah. But it was my hiding spot.
So when the home was purchased, there was a ceiling fan here where our current chandelier is. Of course, I couldn't stand that ceiling fan, so I searched and I found this at a lighting store, and I wanted something very ornate that would go well in a Mediterranean home. As I mentioned downstairs, art is in my family. I mentioned my brother Chris Jagman's art, and up here is Brian Graves, my brother-in-law, who is a teacher, full-time teacher in Chicago, and his art is all using words, and I asked him to make me a piece of art for this library, and it is all titles of famous books.
This room is so special to me because I feel like it was my escape. It was a place where I could go and dream and read about love and read about the heroines that I adored. And I think this room is really where I grew up and where I learned who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be, and it's just a magical space, and I'm so lucky and grateful that it's still part of my life and that my children can hopefully learn to read in here, and I really love sharing it with others too.
So obviously this room has been very special to our family. It's very special to me, and I do have some wonderful moments in here where I might have a late after dinner drink with friends, or maybe by myself, or I've been known to take a few cat naps in here. It's very nice, can get nice and dark and cool, so it's kind of awesome. And I think really the most important thing to me is that my children have been inspired by this room, and in particular Jacqueline and Savannah with the inspiration of developing Bond and Grace and turning that into a pretty amazing company. So that's really been great for me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.